Prosecutors, judges, all have gone on strike in Tigray. Courts closed. What happened? Welcome to my views and news. Thanks for watching the channel. Three main news stories. Firstly, I want to make a correction about a report which is being shared. It is about Eritrea, being shared by several Ethiopian news sources. I thought of checking it. I checked the source which was being quoted. The report seems to be incorrect. Second story is about the strike by courts in Tigray. Thirdly, American ambassador to Ethiopia arrived in Tigray. Firstly, a correction about some statistics which are being shared by several Ethiopian news sources, activists, and journalists. The sources have shared data allegedly published by the IMF, International Monetary Fund. The data shows details of government debt to GDP ratio of different countries. The data being shared by Ethiopian activists shows a debt to GDP ratio in African countries. Eritrea is shown at the top, that in Eritrea, debt to GDP ratio, government debt to GDP ratio is 201%. That the Eritrean government's debt with total GDP is 200%, which is alarming. It means that the debt is more than double the GDP. And the Ethiopian news sources wrote IMF as the source of the statistics. Well, I have been making videos on IMF statistics about the world economies, about African economies. I know that IMF generally does not share any data about Eritrean economy. Why? Because Eritrean government does not give access to Western institutions, don't have access to Eritrean economy. Eritrean economy is a mystery economy, you can say. No one knows the exact amount of GDP, exact amount of debt, etc. Figures are shared by some institutions, but IMF generally does not share data about Eritrean economy. So I then searched IMF's website. There I checked the statistics posted by IMF regarding debt to GDP ratio of different countries. And there in front of Eritrea it is written no data available. It means IMF did not publish a report recently claiming that Eritrean government debt to GDP ratio is over 200%. I am not saying that this debt to GDP ratio is not 200%. Maybe the figures are correct, but the source which was being mentioned is not true. IMF never shared such data. We need to be careful in this war of words, war of narratives, a cyber war between Eritrean and Ethiopian activists. False information is being shared. False interpretation of history is being shared. So whatever you share about the two countries, you need to be very careful. Second news story is from Tigray, where courts have stopped working. Especially in Mekelle, the courts have suspended their services temporarily. When will courts resume? work, not clear. Indefinitely, they have suspended their work. By the way, uh, at the end of last week, the chairman and deputy chairman of Tigray Supreme Court uh, tendered their resignations. They were appointed by the former president Gitacho. Now, new president is in power. Maybe that is why the Supreme Court chief and his deputy have resigned. Why is that judges, prosecutors have gone on strike? Well, it's related to an incident which happened in Makale. Zaidu Haftu, a girl, was murdered over a year ago. Her death trial underway. Did several videos on that. Sarah did some videos on Zaid Haftu's murder too. She was allegedly killed by a man who is from a family which is very influential in Tigray. He is the son of former police chief of Tigray. While the trial about Zaidu Haftu's murder was underway, that accused family stormed the court. Family members, relatives of that boy who is the accused in Zaidu Haftu's murder, they threatened the judge on duty. They threatened court staff. They threatened prosecutors. Incident happened a few days ago. Several sources reported that. That is why judges, uh, court officials, prosecutors have gone on strike. They say they need to be provided with security. They're not secure and safe. If they're not safe, they won't be able to deliver justice. Judges need to be protected. Only then they can ensure that they make decisions fearlessly. Let's see when the court strike will come to an end, but it's part of the lawlessness which we have been seeing in Tigray. Basically, when your top tier is above and beyond accountability, lawlessness then spreads across the society. Those in power, they are immune, they are not held accountable, and those who are being ruled, they are vulnerable. Anytime the weapon of law can be used against. Lastly, viewers, American influence in Tigray is not a secret. It was the US which mediated a ceasefire deal, a peace deal between TPLF and the federal government. Pretoria was mainly facilitated by the Americans and Westerners. Americans took TPLF, Tigray channels to Pretoria. Discussions were held, and in 2022, they signed Pretoria deal. While we're seeing rising tensions between Tigray ruling elite and the federal government, US is stepping in. Arvind Masinga, US ambassador to Ethiopia, arrived in Tigray today. He visited Shire, he visited the humanitarian operations being conducted by US humanitarian organizations there. Interestingly, he held meetings with Tigray journalists. He met with TPLF officials and then he held a meeting with Tigray journalists. So you see that Americans are deeply involved in Tigray. Americans not on good terms with the Eritrean ruling class, but they are on good terms with the TPLF and Tigray generals. Will Arvind Masinga be able to de-escalate the situation between Addis Ababa and Makale? Let's see. That remains to be seen. Thanks for watching.